let's go ahead and get
Go ahead.
going.
Yep.
And so Chris, today's speaker is Frank Gordon. He's with NRMCA. He's the Senior Director of Building Innovations there, and going to talk about the Design Center. A lot of good tools and things for the industry to help the industry. So I'll kind of turn it over to Frank and let him talk, and then maybe at the end we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to do next week and some other things. I'll hold that to the end, so in case some other people come on board.
Sure.
Take it away, Frank.
Okay. Well, and guys, thanks for having me here today. And I don't want to miss the opportunity. Of course, we're bombarding you with the sponsors today here, here, Christopher. But you can see who our TCA's platinum sponsors are, and then also who the presenting sponsors are. And then being with the National Ready-Mix Concrete Association, we have our own super sponsors, and they are sponsors of all of our different presentations. So you can see those, and I'm sure most of these names are names that you're probably familiar with. So, but we wanted to make sure we took time to acknowledge them. We are going to record this today, and I don't even think the second one applies now. Just ask any question you have anytime. So just let us know what kind of questions you might have, and we will have a PDF of the presentation that we will send out, and we'll send to you so that you've got a copy of it for your use. Okay. All right, so I'm going to be doing some multitasking things here, so just bear with me. I'm going to be changing slideshow and hitting my bullet points, so just bear with me. So, but today I want to talk to you about the Concrete Design Center. If you're not familiar with what that is, a Concrete Design Center is a service that's provided by NRMCA in conjunction with our state affiliates to provide design solutions and design answers to concrete questions for virtually anybody in the industry. It's actually a free service that we provide to the construction industry to be able to show the many benefits of using concrete. So I'm going to just kind of read loosely through my notes and run through these options that you see here. I'm doing a little screen adjustment here. Forgive me for a second, but so we're going to do that was a quick refresher of what the Concrete Design Center is. Basically, you can take at any time, use plans or any sort of information on an upcoming project, as long as we have good information that we can use dimensionally from an aspect of floor plan or from an aspect of elevations, to know what a building is going to look like or a project's going to look like. We can usually use that to estimate and give a comparison of what the project would look like done either in metal stud or steel rigid frame or wood frame, and then compare that to a solution in concrete, so that owners, developers, architects, engineers can make an informed decision when it comes to using concrete as a design medium. Now, so as I'm scrolling right here, forgive me, as I'm scrolling right here. So we've talked about the Concrete Design Center. I want to look at, the thing that we've got to talk about is, does the Design Center work, which is the second bullet point that you see there on the screen. So I want to talk about some statistics about how the Design Center has worked. Let me get over to it here. So here's some results of the Concrete Design Center and how we've used it. So over the course of the 4 years that the Concrete Design Center has been in effect, there's been 606 projects that have been submitted to the Concrete Design Center for some sort of use phase or evaluation in the construction phase. There are 212 building projects that have actually been converted to concrete because of the efforts of the Concrete Design Center. Right now, concrete currently affords about 33% of the concrete floor area of the market share, which is about an 8% increase since 2016. So we are seeing positive results from it. And that translates into 18 million additional cubic yards of concrete that have been placed in buildings because of the efforts through the Build with Strength program and the Concrete Design Center. Now, that being said, as you've seen those, we know that not every project that's going to be submitted to the Concrete Design Center is going to be flipped necessarily. We know that they're not always going to make it, but what our whole goal here is to help owners architects, anyone who wants to bring a project to the Concrete Design Center, give them something that can help them make an informed decision so that at the end of a project or even after a project is done, they don't find out that they could have looked at concrete as an option, you know, not just from flat slabs and doing their footings, but also look at concrete from a building medium of an exterior shell. They're not sitting there asking themselves, why didn't I look at that? Or how come this wasn't something that was afforded to me? So, you know, that's one of the big reasons that we do this. We're going to look at some case studies real quickly. So I'm just going to jump into those real quick for you. One is a project that was done in Gambrills, Maryland, is a Microtel. A lot of people don't think about something like a chain like Microtel as being a project that would be done out of ICF or concrete, but this is actually under construction as we speak. It's a project being done by Cheney Development, but it's right in the heart of Gambrills, Maryland. Architectural plans were approved in 2017. We actually did a DAP on it. Now, what a DAP is a design assistance report. That is the actual report that the Concrete Design Center would produce that would be given to an owner or an architect or whoever brought the project to NRMCA or to TCA. And that report is then used to make an informed decision about whether or not, you know, to go concrete for this building. So this building is actually being built out of ICF for the exterior walls and the party walls, and precast plank is being used for the floor system. And so it is due to be finished up sometime this fall, probably. I think it's going to be opening before Thanksgiving. So our next one we have here, now this is Walker's Landing. This is a hotel, not a hotel, excuse me. This is a multifamily development that's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 133 units, $19.5 million construction cost. ICF on the outside, ICF for most of the party walls inside the building. Now you can imagine Milwaukee, Wisconsin is you're in the midst of a climate that can get pretty extreme, especially during the winter. I know I've built in Wisconsin during the winter, and you better have your long underwear on if you're going to go up there and be doing anything outside. But they were able, because of ICF, because of the advantages of ICF, they were able to keep building through the winter with no stop to the construction schedule, and were able to deliver the project on time. And the owner, who is a long-term hold owner, is experiencing very high occupancy and very low vacancy ratings in this development, because all of his tenants tell him it's very quiet, it's very energy efficient in the cost of having utilities in the building, and it's in a great location. So, you know, it's a very positive project that we're seeing. And it was a project that was flipped because of the Concrete Design Center doing a cost evaluation on it for the owner, showing him what he could do it for. And this is an example of a project that has now become, reality because of what was used in concrete. The next one I have for you is a fire station in Gilbert, New Mexico. This is a fire station that was built about 10,000 square feet. Cost of the station, $2.5 million. This was about 4 or 5 years ago when this one was completed. They did ICF on the outside. As you can see, some of the amenities has a full kitchen, fitness center, dorm rooms, laundry, bay doors, what you would typically see in a standard fire station. But one of the reasons why Gilbert selected and why they wanted to go with ICF was, one, because of the energy savings. Number two, they wanted to make sure that, and we're seeing this more and more in municipalities around the United States. In fact, Charlotte, North Carolina is a good one right now, that they are building all of their police stations and all their fire stations out of ICF, because you want to make sure your first responders, the people who are in charge of taking care of you, are taken care of. So, we were able to take the original plans from the architect. He was originally going to do this as a stick frame and block structure. We were able to do a cost comparison for him using RS means, using the standard cost with RS means, with then using a local cost from local installers, and then comparing those costs, and then presenting that cost difference to the local town council there in Gilbert. And from that, they said, there's no question this is a way that we want to go. We want to make sure that not only are these guys protected, but also they've got an energy efficient facility. And they rave about it, and they've said from here on out, the rest of their fire stations are going to be built that way, all because we were able to get the opportunity to use their plans and do a DAP report for them and show them the advantages of concrete. So the next one I have here for you is, well, did I skip it? I think I did. There we go. 10 4th Street. Now this is a project that is currently under construction as we speak. It's actually topped out now, and they're starting to do the interior finish out. This is a mixed-use project. It's in Dover, New Hampshire. It was reviewed by the Concrete Design Center in 2019. Now we're going to talk about this one a little bit more here in a second, because I'm going to use some of the examples of some of the DAP information, not all of it, but some of the DAP information that we used in Dover to win that project. For the developer and for the concrete industry up in New Hampshire. But you can see this is an ICF project being done on the outside. It's going to be a beautiful building once it's done. And this is the multi-story, 1 to 4 story is just an ideal medium for using ICF. And we have great numbers that we can show people about how this is, would be a benefit for them to use it. So now that we know that there's some examples of what the Concrete Design Center can do and how it works, let's talk a little bit about how we need to use it and how we need to leverage this. So let's look at what we call the why. We've got some market validation numbers that, why we should be sharing this information, why we should be talking about it, and how we can use that to increase our market, how we can use it to advance what we're doing. A lot of people have the misnomer or the misunderstanding that concrete construction is way expensive. Well, that's just not the case anymore. With what's going on with building codes, what is being required in the way of insulating buildings, what's being required in the way of resiliency in some places, especially in storm resistance, concrete has never been afforded a better building environment than what we're seeing right now. In fact, right now, and John and Donna, I think you probably can speak to this. In all the states that I represent right now, talking to all the members that I have, especially the batch plant providers, they're telling me they can't fill the trucks fast enough right now. I mean, it's a great time to be in the concrete industry, even with all of the, unsurety of what's going on in our world right now. It's a, very healthy industry as we speak. And I really don't see that slowing down much. I mean, of course, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? None of us know that. But given what we're seeing, it's a very healthy time for the concrete industry. So there's never been a better time to be utilizing a tool like the Concrete Design Center to help people understand they can use concrete, use it cost effectively for their projects. So we're going to push on here to who we should be talking to. Now, this is where we start getting a little bit more tedious about helping people understand how to use this tool and how to leverage this tool to, be more productive and to, help gain market share for the industry. So the bottom line is really what this comes down to is the people that you're working with already, your partners, architects, engineers, contractors, owners, developers. Be using those relationships and be talking to them about this service, called the Concrete Design Center that they have. It's available to them. It's provided to them as a service from NRMCA and TCA. And because of the fact that it doesn't cost them anything, they should be, capitalizing on the opportunity to get, at least some comparing numbers on what would it be like to build something out of concrete. These are the decision makers that we're already working with. These are the people that we already know. So we already have a relationship to, base the discussion on. So we should be using those relationships to say, hey, I have an opportunity here. If you've got this project and you're wanting to push forward with the development of it, let me at least give you a comparing number, or at least let me give you some comparing information that you can use as a baseline for if you were to do this project out of concrete, what it would look like. At least gives you some information that you can use. Like I said, and we won't always know all those players. We won't always know who everyone is that's on a design team or a building team. but you might know an architect who knows the contractor or the owner, or you might know the owner and he already has his design team put together or his contractor put together. So there's many ways that we can use this and leverage it to network, and then turn around and see this turn into a positive for the concrete industry. Yeah, anybody have any questions? I want to make sure nobody's got anything or any questions. Christopher, did you have any questions for us?
My question would be, at what time the world I came from was design build, like I said, student housing, multifamily, single family hotels, most of them mid-rise, from 2 to 6 stories.
Right.
At what point would it be feasible to come to the design center with, because the earlier the better, the earlier the decisions can get made, it's better for everyone. At what point would it be best to come to you with concepts, or when the projects first just talked about with square footages and rough shapes, in order to help decisions get made in which direction to go? So at what point, what would be best?
Yeah, no, I understand your question. Basically, you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but really what you're saying, is there ever a point that it's too early to start talking about a project with a concrete design center, correct?
Yeah, because usually the decisions on structure type are made, at least where I came from, very early on, whether or not it's going concrete, or even we did a lot of cross-laminated timber or cold form steel. At what point, but those decisions get made, as early as possible. So I'm just saying, at what point's the best to come to the design center?
Well, we've literally had people come to us and they said, we're thinking about a project. We have an idea of square footage. Do you have something that we can look at to compare to? And we have a lot of what we call reference DAPs. They are design assist reports. They have been done either in a generic format, or they were done on a project that's similar to what the person is asking or saying that they want to build. And by using that reference DAP, we can at least give them something that shows them, here's what it looks like to do this out of concrete. Sometimes the numbers are a couple years old, and so we'll update the numbers and forward that on and let them look at it, or it will be very generic, and it'll say, just as like you were talking about multifamily, we'll say this is a 100,000 square foot apartment building. This is what it cost in 2018, 2019 to build this facility out of concrete, using ICF for the exterior walls, and using, either a precast plank or some sort of composite rigid deck, or cast in place deck with a rigid steel, cold rolled joist. There's several different, ways that we can price that and use it. The biggest thing that I find here lately in multifamily, just speaking to the multifamily part, is one of the biggest concerns that I hear coming from the multifamily developer industry is sound. One of the biggest things that they battle is sound. In fact, I'm working on one right now in Maryland where they've built eight versions of this one building, same footprint, same floor plan. They've changed the outside look a little bit here and there, but they built this building 8 times. It's a 24 unit, 3-story building, and they've built it out of wood every time. And their occupancy rate right now is running somewhere close to the mid-20s, 20 percentile, which is, for a developer who's trying to, fill the units, that's not a good number to see, when you get into double digits in vacancy in a multifamily. So they said, the biggest complaint that we have is how loud these buildings are. People can hear what's going on in the unit above them and below them. They hear a little bit through the walls, but the biggest thing that they were hearing is the sound transfer between the floors. They said, what can we do? So I got together with our design team, the DAP team, and we put together a report for him showing him how he could build the same building, did a takeoff based upon the floor plan that they already had. And we actually put together a whole, using plans from the old building that had dimensional information on it. We gave him a report showing this is what it would cost if you built it with wood. This is what it would cost if you built it out of concrete. And here's how you can battle the sound issue. We even went in depth on the sound study and even got into talking about STC ratings and STC type of, construction details that would help to minimize and reduce sound infiltration from one unit to another. So I say all that to say, if we can either at least have an idea of what type of facility it is, or if by chance the architect or even the owner themselves has a schematic set of plans, basically a floor plan layout that has some dimensions on it and an idea of what the outside of the building is going to look like with some heights on it. From that, we can give them a design assist report. So does that help out answer the question a little bit?
Yeah, that helps out. Another question is, when you talk about sound, have you actually done field testing to see, because as you know, most of the time, the STC ratings field tested versus what the labs show is normally 5 points, at least 5 points difference.
Sure.
Have you field tested some of your projects versus what the lab test to see what that actual difference is?
So I personally have not done that. But what we have done is with the ICF manufacturers and with the owners, we have gone back in a couple of places, and the ICF manufacturers have actually paid for testing to be done. And so I actually, if you want, I have a whole write-up on sound that comes from compiling all this data, not only from lab tests, but also from field tests that were done on some projects. And I can send that to you and let you review it and then see if you have some additional questions for me, and I'll be glad to answer them if I can.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, yeah, I'll be glad to do that. No, I'll be glad to provide that to you. You know, and it's written generically, but you'll see that there will be references under some of the tables and stuff that show you where some of the data came from. So I'll send that to you. If you'll make sure I get your information before we leave today, I'll send that to you, and then we can, you know, have some discussions. And if I need to get you some additional testing, and I have a ton of testing available, some additional tests to look at, I'll be glad to get that for you, provide it to you.
Sure, thanks.
Okay, all right. So hopefully that answered your question about, you know, how soon is too soon, you know, to start something with the design assist. You know, if it's something where a project is very much in its amorphic stage and it you know, they don't know the size yet, they might have an idea of square footage, they don't have a site yet. I've actually had some where they've said, we know we want to build this building, but we don't know where exactly it's going to go yet, but can you give us an idea of what the cost would be? We can do that because we've done enough DAPs over the last few years that we've at least got reference material that we can provide. So my answer to you overall of what your original question was, no, I don't think there's any such thing as too soon, other than if somebody has an idea of something that they want to do, we can give them reference material to look at. Okay.
Sure.
So that being said, you know, we talked about our partners. So looking at who should we talk with, we've already talked about that, and what we should say when we're in these discussions. I think we're kind of already hitting on that. I really don't feel like I need to go to a lot of in-depth there, but, you know, I will run through just a couple of key talking points that I think would be, you know, very beneficial for people to understand. You know, one of the first things is, you know, and I can't remember where I've heard this, but, you know, it's one of those, if you don't ask, you don't know type things. So, you know, anytime that you're in your conversations with these people who are either in the design industry or they're, you know, in ownership or even in contractors, you know, one of the easiest things to say is, look, you know, there's something called the Concrete Design Center. It's a free tool that is no cost to you. I think it could be something to be of a tremendous added value to you as a resource for you and your partners. Would you be interested in knowing more about that? I think when you can do that and you can provide them. Now, I always say this in the midst of when I'm presenting and talking about this, people need to understand, you know, it's human nature. The less effort you have to give to get something, the less importance that you put on it sometimes. And so what I typically tell people is, you know, you got to get me a set of plans. You got to give me knowledge, credible knowledge on the project, you know, and be willing to invest some time with me as I ask you questions and find out what is important to you. And that's the other thing too, is that we always like to talk to, just like I was talking about that developer up in Maryland, where sound was the issue for them. They knew they weren't going to go back and build out of wood again because it's become an issue for them, you know, because of the sound transference. You know, make sure that you're taking time to find out, just as Donna knows and John does too. You know, we've been working on a list of questions to ask people about how to use the Concrete Design Center. What are some things that are important to them? You know, we want to know what's important to owners. we know bottom dollar is usually one of the big driving effects of using concrete. We know that that's a big deal, but we also know that sometimes there's something more out there that's making them consider concrete as a building medium instead of just the cost. And so when we can find that out, it helps us to hone down and be able to get to, you know, what the end result needs to be a lot quicker, rather than coming up with something that maybe hits on it a little bit, but really doesn't emphasize the points that they want to hear a lot better. So we definitely want to make sure that we're, you know, asking pertinent questions that give us good information on what they're doing. One of the things that we can also say is this tool, the Concrete Design Center, highlights the best construction materials for short and long term, and we do. That's what we do. Is we'll, you know, of course, being in the concrete industry, we think concrete is the best thing to do, because it is. But we also want to provide people a comparison between construction systems. So we'll even go to the trouble, like I said, you know, we can do a precast plank, or also we can do something that is a, you know, a composite deck, or we can even use a cast in place frame. There's a lot of different ways, and ICF is just a very advantageous medium to use these days because it provides so many things in its solution. But we'll do tilt up. If somebody wants to know what does this building look like if I was to try and do it out of tilt up, we'll do a comparison with tilt up. If they want to know what if I did this as a rigid cast in place frame all the way up with infill walls, what does that look like? I mean, we'll compare it to anything they want to. So finding out again what the important talking points are and what is important to them, that's, you know, that's really what we try to do. So we have a team of design experts, structural engineers mainly. Myself as an architect, there's another architect on staff. Well, actually there's two other architects on staff at NRMCA. We also have people who are out of CIM programs in NRMCA that are helping with these reports. So our DAP team is a very diverse team that comes from very different focuses, but at the same time, they're very well versed on concrete systems, but also to the point that they can also look at, you know, what are other people building out of wood, what are other people building out of steel, and be able to go in and using not only RS means as a kind of a baseline, you know, for the basic cost, but also being able to use something like, you know, local pricing from either the Dodge report or, you know, local contractor information that they've been able to get. And we take all that into account when we put together these cost reports, these DAPs. So let's look real quickly. I just want to run y'all through what a DAP looks like. Now, this is what you're going to see here. This is the cover sheet for that project. It's the last case study that you saw that was 10 4th Street. This is what a typical DAP looks like when we do one. You'll have a cover sheet that identifies the project itself, and we have a table of contents. Now, that's where these numbers are not going to match up. If what you are actually seeing, just in full disclosure, what you are actually seeing is not the numbers for 10 4th Street, because that is an active project and we want to respect the owner's privacy. And that's something that we always try to tell people, is that when they come to us with a project and they want us to do a DAP on it, that information stays between us and the owner unless they give us explicit written permission to release that information to somebody else. So what you are actually seeing on the screen here is information that came out of another DAP report from a project that we were able to get permission to release the numbers and use the numbers for this specific purpose. But what you'll see is when you go through a DAP report, the very first thing, because money matters. Money is what's important to people. They want to know what's it going to cost. So the very first thing they see, bullet number 1, construction cost estimate. And we actually show the comparison that you have down here. There's a little narrative that talks about what that building does and how that building operates. But then you have a total cost. If we're doing a complete cost estimate on the building as a whole, you have an estimate of what wood frame construction would cost, and then you have an estimate of what the concrete construction would cost. And as you can see, between a wood frame structure in this apartment building and a concrete structure, and this is a project that was done just recently, I mean, you're talking less than 1% of difference there if you can see the numbers. I mean, it's pretty competitive. Now, when you get into multifamily or hospitality like hotels, Operating incomes and expenses are very important, and that's very much part of the bottom line. So we actually do a comparison, and this is the table that you see over on the right-hand side of your screen. We actually do a comparison of, here's the potential rent, here's what your loss to vacancy would be, here's what your operating expenses are going to be, and then down at the bottom, we actually give, here's what it costs for wood, here's what it costs for concrete, if you were to individually meter each of the units, or if it's a master meter type building, here's what the cost differences will be. And we show right off the bat, here's the savings, here is the money that you will earn by using concrete in your building. So you can see in this particular situation, the net operating income, it's right at 30,000 more for concrete in the individually metered, and it's almost at $70,000 more if you were master metered. So there's a value to using ICF or concrete, and by providing these numbers, being able to provide these estimates, and these estimates come from data that's provided by the multifamily industry. Okay, so anytime we have that industry that we're basing this project in, we take those numbers and we come up with these. And as you can see, the source is the 2017 NAA Survey of Operating Income and Expenses. And then we compare it to the cost per square foot of the building itself, and then that's how we extrapolate this data. So, anybody have any questions before I go on?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope, I'm good.
So the next thing we do is we talk about construction details. One of the things that we want the DAP to always be able to do is we want whoever the owner, the architect, the contractor, whoever it is, we want to be able to give the design team pointers on, okay, here is the suggested details, of how you're going to design this building. So as you can see, the detail that's over on the left-hand side, that's an ICF wall supporting a wood truss, okay? So that's one way of doing that. If they didn't want to go with precast plank, we showed them a example of using a wood truss detail and how you could, use a ledger board to attach the wood truss to the outside walls. The next one is kind of one of the systems I was referring to, and that's a composite type system like an I-span or speed floor or Hambro. There's several of these different types of composite deck type systems, elevated deck type systems that you can use. And then also ICF also has decking. They have floor systems as well. It's not just walls, they also have floor systems. And we talk about all the advantages that you can get out of using ICF floor in a roof. So we try to run the gambit of all the options available so that an informed decision can be made about these are, which one is best for our project, which one is best for what we're trying to do. So then we jump right into case studies. Now what these are buildings that have been built out of concrete or been built in similar fashion to what the owner or the architect is wanting to design this specific structure out of. You can see that we've got different apartment buildings. We've also got hotels. We have got all kinds of case studies with specific detailing about the size of those buildings, when they were built, and if asked, we can also provide costing information as well. But no one wants to, what we find is that nobody wants to be the guinea pig or feel like they're the guinea pig. So when we can show that, look, here's buildings just like what you're wanting to build that have, been built and been constructed and are being successfully utilized now, that were built out of concrete, I think people get a much more of a comfort level of knowing I'm not the first guy that's done this. I have the ability to use this to show, hey, look, there's precedence for this. This is what we need to be doing next with our building program. So, and at the end, we also provide a detailed cost analysis that shows how we came up with the numbers. Everybody, no one wants to put a lot of faith in just a bottom line number without any backup to where did you come up with this? Just like you were asking about the testing results on sound. Everybody wants to know, where did you come up with this? So when we have done a takeoff on a building, we will provide the two different detailed cost analysis that have been estimated in a spreadsheet and come up with from data that we've been able to pull together. We'll give the wood frame or whatever the competing system is, and we'll also give the concrete solution, and the numbers will match up down at the bottom, and you'll see exactly what that's supposed to be. So it's one of those situations where we have nothing to hide. All we're doing is showing you this is where we came up with the numbers. And if you see something that looks remiss to you, or because of your background, you think that something's not right, all you have to do is tell us and we'll discuss it. But this way people know we didn't just pull this out of thin air somewhere. You know, this is where an actual takeoff was done to show this is what this building would cost. So back to your question, we don't need final drawings to generate a report. You know, and quite frankly, we don't like to see final drawings come to us, because that means that already somebody has paid somebody to generate a set of construction documents. And if that's the case, it's going to be very hard usually to get them to think about paying somebody again to redesign a building out of concrete. But if that's all we have to go on, and if there's a chance because of whatever extenuating circumstance the owner is willing to look at changing over to a concrete medium, we'll take those. But we love to get schematic drawings. We love to get, you know, hey, I'm thinking about building this, and then trying to find a solution and providing that to whoever, you know, wants to see what ADAPT looks like. So we're kind of down to the end here, not doing too bad on time at all. How do we keep this conversation going? Say that somebody comes to us and says, you know, we talked to them, we talked to them about the design center, and they say, well, we're just not really sure about it. How do we keep this conversation going? So we love to, you know, get copies of the project. We love to check in with people. We want to, you know, if somebody has an immediate need, we want to address that. But follow up and future conversations are always important. And quite frankly, in NRMCA, that's something we have to rely on the affiliates and the local members to help us with, because you're the guys, as I said before, you're the guys that have these relationships. You're the guys that are already talking to the decision makers in the different markets. Help us keep the door open so that we can provide you these tools to help win market share for the concrete industry. And that's what we're looking to do with this tool. So here's some key takeaways of what it looks like to use the Concrete Design Center. You know, we've got the stats and the numbers that shows that it works. You know, we know that if people give us the opportunity to provide them a design assistance report, we can take that and use it to their advantage and show them how to talk to those decision makers about, if you use concrete, here's the advantages you're going to have based upon what you were already planning on doing. As we said, concrete is the focus. It's not ICF necessarily. ICF is a great product because it's very versatile, but we'll do tilt up, we'll do cast in place frame. There's a number of different ways that we can help, you know, integrate more concrete into a project, and it's free to use. It's for the local concrete industry. It's for architects, engineers, it's for developers. Basically, it's free to anyone that wants to use it. Just you have to give us the information so that we can help you with it and help you provide the report so that you can take that and give it to the people who are going to make a decision on whether or not to build out of concrete. So that's really, you know, a highlight of all that we were talking about today. You know, you kind of got the boiled down version, Christopher. I hope that was okay for you, but it kind of hits to the point of, we have the ability to provide you estimating and detail services that can help people look at what's a credible way to build something out of concrete. It's just a matter of helping us figure out where those opportunities are and then letting us help you capitalize on them.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I've been, like, where I came from, member of those design teams making those early decisions, whether or not it's going to be wood, whether or not it's going to be steel, whether or not it's going to be. We usually discounted concrete early just because the thought was it was going to be too expensive up front, without taking it any further at all.
Sure.
It's kind of been a little bit eye-opening to me, and I can definitely pass this information along to some of my, you know, teammates or former teammates and cohorts, to just let you know that you even exist and you're out there to help make decisions. Because one of the things, the world I came from, where it was design, build, own, operate, where, yeah, if you can save some money on the back end and the operating costs, that more than covers, you know, the additional cost up front. I mean, so it may be well worthwhile that it may cost another 4 or 5% up front, but it's going to pay for itself over the long run because from the operating costs. it's been a little been eye-opening for me. But if I could just get like the information on how to contact you and how to get them involved, that could help, and I could pass it on.
Well, that was the next thing I was going to. So I appreciate you saying that. And you know, Christopher, that's exactly why the Concrete Design Center has been created. That's exactly why it came along, because we realized that decisions were being made without people being fully informed. And especially with where building codes are now, especially with the integration of the model energy code into the, you know, international building code and what is required now to insulate a building properly. When we start walking contractors through, look, would you rather have one subcontractor build this wall that has your structure, your insulation, your vapor barrier, and your furring system in it? Or would you rather have 5 contractors touching it, which means it's going to take you longer, it's going to cost you more, and quite frankly, you're going to have lower quality, because whenever you have a contractor or subcontractor follow another contractor, the propensity for an error or a problem rises dramatically, because let's just be honest, most subcontractors don't care about somebody else's contract. They just want to get in, get their part done, and get out. But when you've got one guy that's walking away that's providing this sort of system, you know, and then we're also showing that from using concrete, there's usually an advantage in speed and time. And then if it's a long hold owner, you know, somebody that's going to hold on to this building a long time, and the energy usage is very important to them. I have had very few people, whenever we have done a DAP for them, done a design assist report, and showed them the difference and what it can mean to them over the long haul. I've had very few ever come back and even ask the question, well, you know, you just, you know, really? You know, when you can show them credible numbers, and when you can show them estimates, and when you can show them evidence of other places where this has been done, you know, we have a very good success rate in using this. And you know, that's the reason why we're doing this today. And I appreciate Donna and John and Alan and the whole team at TCA for giving me the opportunity to come in and talk about it, because getting the word out there and letting people know this is available to them, that's what this is all about, is making sure they understand there's a resource available to them that provides value to them and their team. They've just got to tap into it and use it.
Well, the story that you told about the apartments and the 20%, that's just a huge difference for those people. So they didn't save money in the beginning. This is much different for them. So I think it's a great story. I think that's really a good example.
Well, yeah. and the problem is the buildings are even continuing to cost them money now because of their vacancy rate.
Right. It just goes on and on. Yeah, for the length of the building. So yeah, absolutely.
Christopher, you were going to say something else. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say that the small amount, when you were showing those costs up front, between the wood and the concrete, just dealing with the noise complaints is well worth that upcharge right there. Because I've had to deal with those noise complaints and hire consultants to go out there and do the testing, and that's not fun.
Right. Well, this is our team, just to give you a little bit of information. This is our team in the regions that we cover. I'm based out of Knoxville. I'm not far away. I'm just over in Knoxville. I actually grew up in Middle Tennessee. But I cover the Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, and then the Carolinas, the Virginias, and Maryland markets. So that's the region of the country that I cover. You can see all the rest of my teammates across the United States there. And then our DAP team and technical team headed up by Lionel LeMay, and then Module McCrae and Derek Torres. They're the ones that are in there helping with the DAPs. Myself and Don Thompson were both architects, and we both helped with the DAP process as well because of our background and history in them. But this is kind of the team that does promotions. We've also got a advocacy and codes team all that this team does is deal with fire code issues, advocacy issues, legislation type issues. And as you can see, they're kind of all across the country as well. But, you know, their whole thing is to help us figure out, you know, how can concrete better work with what codes are being required? How can we help legislation in different markets that will benefit concrete and show that concrete is a better option, you know, than wood, especially with all that we've heard over the last few years of, you know, mid-level wood structures that were either under construction or only a couple years old, and they burned to the ground literally within minutes, you know, not hours, not days, but minutes, you know. there's got to be a better way, and we believe that we have a better way, and it's concrete. It's just a matter of getting that message out there and getting people to realize concrete is not twice the price of wood anymore. It's not a fourth of the price of wood anymore. We're talking pennies on the dollar now, not extreme costs. And when you look at the back end savings, you know, it just becomes a no-brainer at that point.
John's been at our annual convention. I believe he was at summer meeting last year too. He's been wonderful talking.
John Lawyer?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, John is extremely knowledgeable. John has a background in the codes. John was actually a codes inspector for many years before he joined the team. Shamim she actually sits on the board of NFPA for all of the United States. She is one of the people that's helping decide fire codes, and she is a direct employee and consultant for NRMCA. Scott Campbell is also an engineer. James Bogdan is our resiliency expert. And then Tien Ping is our sustainability expert. He's the one that's been helping us study how do we build structures that withstand concretes and direct weather, inclement weather impacts more. So we've got a very talented team that's helping us with the research that we're doing.
Absolutely.
So real quickly, just some other things that are coming along. Kind of peeked at y'all's schedule coming up too, Donna, but we've got another specifying sustainability concrete through NRMCA. Christopher, if you just go to the nrmca.org website, the schedule for other webinars is there of other online learning opportunities that's coming up. The next one is July 9th with Martin Clark with Nadura, which his will be, I think you can register through the TCA website, correct, Donna? And then you've got the fundamentals of concrete, part 1 and 2, that's going to be offered 2 different times, and you can see the schedule of that there. So there's plenty of opportunities in the concrete industry to be learning more about concrete and how to use it that's available to you. And then you asked about contact information. Here's some contact information for you. Christopher, if you want to send me an email at some point or get me your contact information, I'll be glad to reach out to you, at your schedule and your leisure. But that's my email address. Donna's is right below that. John, I'm sorry, I should have put yours on there, but you can shoot me later when you see me. But there's the LinkedIn for NRMCA. There's the Facebook for Tennessee Concrete, and then the Twitter and the websites. So please take use of these and let us know how we can be of benefit to you.
Sure. Thanks.
And a quick question, Frank. The best way to get a hold of people if they want to use the design center, is it to contact one of the reps that you showed on the map, or is there also a online tool to where you can submit information and be contacted? Or
no, I appreciate you asking that, John. Yeah, one of 2 ways. I definitely, if it's something that falls in my territory, please call me directly. I'll handle the rest for you if you get me the pertinent information. But if it's something that's based in another state, you're just not sure who to talk to, you can go to the buildwithstrength.com. That's actually buildwithstrength.com. And there is a page on there for the Concrete Design Center. If you click on it, it has where you can fill out just some basic information saying, I'm interested in using the Design Center. Would you contact me? They can go in, they can fill out the information, and then that comes to us. And we just, based upon where the contact came from or based upon where the project's going to be, then we'll forward that to the appropriate, senior director who's over that region, and then we'll let the conversation begin.